everyone, welcome back to our today video, which is about mutating the state and the props in the React, which is one of the biggest anti-patterns. And please never do this. So what is the reason of not mutating the state of the props, and what is mutating a state or a prop? Okay, so the reason why it is anti-patterns, because it creates a lot of bugs, and in some certain scenarios it may create like actual bugs, like actual problems, and in some other scenarios it might not create any issues for you. Okay, so that looks a bit weird and strange. Let me explain this in a real-time example. So I have a very basic creepy code here where I'm mutating the prop. Okay, so we'll go through it. First, on the left we have the parent component, and basically what we are doing, we have a button and we have a counter, and what we do whenever we click that button here, it just increments our count from 0 to 1 and so on. So every time you click the button, it increments our state count by 1. Okay, and what we have here on the top, we're just displaying that count value, and what we have in down here is a child component that we are passing that state. And that's what child, what it does, it takes that state and the count basically inside that state and add 5 into it, then display directly that count for us. Okay, so from look at the code, what you'll expect, like first time when you render the screen, you're expecting here to see a 0, of course, and also you're expecting in the child to be 0 plus 5 and should be here 5. Okay, so that's the first thing we have to see when we load the screen. Okay, I run this locally. Let me see what we have. So we have here a 0, which is right, but here we are seeing 10, we are not seeing 5. And the reason why, because first time the component renders, this child component rendered twice, like first time for rendering initial render and second one for updating the setting of the first state. So first thing here is to see something is wrong, and the reason why it happened is that because we mutated our prop. Okay, so what that means? So what we did, we passed our state here, we set and count in it, then we passed the whole state to our child component. So up to here it's good. So everything here is correct, everything is nice. So the problem happened inside our child components. So what we did wrong in here is that we access our state here and we said, please change directly that count object inside there. So we went exactly inside that count and we said, do for me that count itself plus 5. Okay, so here what you're doing, you're not just like creating a new variable inside your child component and changing that state. No, you're going basically up and you're changing the whole object in your actual parent state, which is completely wrong, and that's what is called mutating the state, or also mutating the prop. And that's what we didn't want to do. We didn't want to do that in our child component. So what we wanted to do is access that count, add 5 into it, and display for me that. Okay, so if you go back here to our browser and we'll click the button and we'll see what will happen. So here we have 10, okay, which is already wrong. It should be here only 5. And what we'll do, click increment. So if I click increment, I'm supposed to see here 1, right? And depending on the value here, I'm supposed to see 15 because I already wrong. So let's see what will happen. I incremented. So first here we didn't see 1, we saw 10. And that came from what? The 10 came from the actual child component where it was 10 before, right? So that actually changed the parent state. We didn't only read it and add 5, but we actually changed the state above. Okay, and then what happened, we had here 10 and now it's become 21. So we added whatever value before was here, we added to that one. So basically the counter, which is very basic code example we have here, it's not working. Okay, so let me show you another scenario, and what we will do, we will not pass an object, we will just pass a number. Okay, so I will say the whole state, the whole state, we will say it's a 0. So I'm setting a boolean. I'm sorry, not a boolean. I'm setting a number. And of course here we'll just increment state. So we increment state by 1. and then here we say, okay, state itself, and I'm saying here state is state, and then come back here, I'm passing the state, and I will remove dot count. I'm just saying the state itself, it's +5, and I'm saying state here. Nice. Okay, now let's see in our browser what will happen. Refresh. So here you can see, I refresh the screen. So first thing we see that everything looks already right. The counter is 0 already, so it's starting from 0, and here it's 5. So 5 plus 0 is just 5, and if I click increment, then you have here 1, and here you have 5 plus 1, which is 6. Okay, so why? When we used an object and we pass it through and we change it, everything just screwed up and nothing worked. Then when we use it as a number, it just worked and everything seems to be fine. If you're already experienced JavaScript programmer, you might already know the answer. So we'll know that there is a big difference here. So there is something called primitive types, such as numbers, boolean, strings, that are immutable and they can be passed by value. So like you see here, we passed our number here down and nothing goes wrong, okay, because we passed by value. Okay, it will not change when you change its actual value. Where if you use an object, they are not primitive type and they are passed by a reference. Okay, so that's why before we moved an object here down here, then we change it there. Okay, it doesn't trigger the change only if you change a value. You just know because you pass by a reference, it knows that something changed and goes updated again up. Okay. Now you say, okay, in some scenarios I want to pass an object, okay, I don't want to pass a boolean or a number or something. So how I can pass an object and do what I need to do here without I mutate the prop? Okay, good question. Let me first revert this to use an object. I'll just pause the video while I revert that to our initial code. So now I revert to the change we had earlier. We're using the object itself where we are passing and try to read it. So you'll say now how, okay, I can use an object but still I will be able to do what I want to do. And our luck in this scenario is very simple. We can just like express the change in the render function itself. And what does mean I can just come here and do state.count +5, because I know I just want the state above +5 to display. I go to my browser, I refresh, and you can see initially it's right. I just write increment and here 1 plus 5 is 6, again increment, here 2, and 2 plus 5 is 7, which is working. So in scenario you have more complex things that you do with your props. What you can do is you can create a copy of your state and then do whatever you want to do to it. So I'll come here, guys, okay, const copy state, for example, and I'll say this one is just the state object I have, and then I'll just come down in here and I'll say I want to read from this state itself, not from the original state but from the new objects we created, and do this and save, and that should work as well. Go to my screen, refresh, and again we start in right, 0 and 5, increment 1 plus 5 6, increment again 2 plus 5 7. So that's what is mutating the state or the process, and that's how you can avoid it in a better way. I hope this video is very helpful. If you have any comments or better way of doing this, please share it down in the comment section so everyone can learn from each other.